What happens when your car suddenly has to dodge danger at highway speed, and it just can't? That's the nightmare the Moose test was built to reveal. One split-second maneuver, and a calm drive turns into chaos. Over the years, this simple swerve has humiliated some of the world's biggest automakers: SUVs, EVs, hybrids, even performance icons, all exposed in just a few seconds of steering. Some lift onto two wheels, others plow straight through the cones like a runaway train. In this video, we're diving into the real reasons new cars keep failing the Moose test, from bad software to bad physics, and we'll uncover which model shocked testers the most. Stick around to the end, because the worst offender isn't a cheap compact or a tiny hatchback. It's a family SUV trusted by thousands, and after seeing what happened, you might rethink your next drive. Before we start calling out the biggest failures, let's understand the test that terrifies automakers around the world: the Moose test. It looks simple: drive in a straight line, then swerve hard to one side and snap back into your lane, all without touching the brakes. But in reality, it's one of the toughest handling tests ever created. The name comes from Sweden, where moose are huge, unpredictable, and have a bad habit of walking onto highways. Hitting one at speed can be fatal for both the driver and the animal. So Swedish journalists designed a maneuver to simulate what a real driver would do if a moose, a child, or another car suddenly appeared in front of them. The course is made of cones, narrow lanes only a few meters wide. The car must enter, swerve, and return to its original path without knocking over a single cone. Speeds usually start around 65 kilometers per hour, 40 miles per hour, and increase until the car loses control. The top speed it can manage cleanly is the car's Moose test result. Sounds straightforward until you realize what's working against modern cars. Today's vehicles are heavier, taller, and packed with batteries or luxury features that raise their center of gravity. That means when the driver yanks the wheel, the whole mass shifts violently to one side. Even advanced stability control systems can be a split second too late to catch it. One wrong calibration, one poorly chosen tire compound, and you've got an SUV on two wheels or an EV plowing through cones like bowling pins. And while the Moose test isn't an official government standard, it's a journalistic stress test. Its results travel fast. One viral failure can destroy a reputation overnight. Just ask Mercedes. Back in 1997, their small A-Class flipped during the test, forcing a recall and leading to a global revolution in stability control systems. Since then, every major car maker has feared this moment, the instant where engineering pride meets reality. Because the Moose test doesn't care about horsepower, brand prestige, or clever marketing. It only cares about one thing: whether your car can dodge disaster when it matters most. The flip that changed everything. Mercedes A-Class 1997. In 1997, Mercedes-Benz wanted to prove that small could still mean luxurious. The new A-Class was their bold entry into the compact world, a tall, innovative hatchback designed for young families and city life. It had the Mercedes badge, the safety reputation, and the marketing to match. But it also had one big problem: the laws of physics. When Swedish magazine Teknikens Värld lined up the A-Class for the Moose test, no one expected drama. It entered the cones at about 37 miles per hour, modest by today's standards, and what happened next became automotive legend. As the driver swerved left and snapped right, the little Mercedes didn't just slide or understeer, it flipped completely. The front tire dug in, the body rolled, and in an instant, the car was on its roof. A Mercedes-Benz, upside down in front of cameras. The footage spread across Europe like wildfire. Newspapers called it the flip heard around the world. Buyers panicked. Dealers froze orders. Rival brands couldn't believe it. How could a company known for bulletproof safety build a car that tipped over like a toy? To their credit, Mercedes didn't deny it or blame the test. They went back to the drawing board immediately. Production was halted. Thousands of cars were recalled. Engineers redesigned the suspension, widened the track, fitted stiffer springs, and lowered the ride height. But the real revolution was electronic. For the first time ever, Mercedes decided to make Electronic Stability Program (ESP) standard on a small car. A system that could detect a skid or slide and correct it in milliseconds, something no other compact had at the time. That single decision transformed the entire industry. Within a few years, ESP, or stability control, became mandatory across Europe, then worldwide. So, what started as an embarrassing flip ended up reshaping automotive safety forever. The 1997 A-Class didn't just fail the Moose test, it rewrote the rulebook. And in doing so, it turned a public relations nightmare into one of the most important wake-up calls in modern car history. Tough isn't always stable. Toyota Hilux, 2016. The Toyota Hilux has a reputation carved in steel. It's the pickup that conquered deserts, survived wars, and even kept running after being dropped from buildings on Top Gear. So when Toyota released the 8th generation Hilux in 2016, the world expected nothing less than invincibility. But then came the Moose test, and suddenly that unshakable legend looked shaky. During testing by Sweden's Teknikens World, the Hilux entered the cones at just 37 miles per hour. What happened next was pure drama. As the driver threw the wheel left and snapped right, the truck leaned hard. Its front suspension compressed, its body tilted like a ship in the rough seas, and within seconds, the inside wheels lifted clean off the ground. For a split second, it looked ready to roll. The testers backed off, checked everything, and tried again. Same result. Even with electronic stability control engaged, the Hilux swayed dangerously with every run. It wasn't a fluke, it was a pattern, one that exposed the limits of even Toyota's toughest machine. So, what went wrong? Engineers later noted a mix of culprits: a high center of gravity, overly stiff tires, and a suspension tuned more for hauling loads than handling curves. On smooth pavement, those off-road shocks and tall springs made the Hilux slow to react, like a bodybuilder trying to dance ballet. When the weight shifted mid-swerve, momentum took over, and gravity nearly won. The issue was serious enough that Toyota had to respond publicly. They claimed later models received suspension and stability updates, but the damage was done. For years, the Hilux had been the poster child for dependability. Now, it was also proof that tough doesn't always mean stable. To its credit, the Hilux still performs brilliantly in the terrain it was built for: muddy trails, rocky climbs, heavy loads. But the Moose test reminded everyone of a hard truth. A vehicle designed to survive the wild isn't automatically ready for a sudden swerve on asphalt. Because when danger jumps out on the road, even legends can lose their footing. Modern tech gone wrong. Toyota RAV4 Prime, 2020. The Toyota RAV4 Prime was supposed to be everything modern drivers wanted: safe, efficient, and fast. It had the reliability of a RAV4, the power of a performance hybrid, and enough electric range to make city trips guilt-free. On paper, it looked bulletproof. But then Sweden's Teknikens World lined it up for the Moose test. And things went downhill fast. At about 39 miles per hour, the RAV4 Prime darted into the cones, confident, planted, composed. Then, almost instantly, that calm turned to chaos. The front tires started to understeer. The rear end snapped out violently. Cones went flying in every direction. And as the suspension bounced through the recovery lane, the front tire nearly rolled off the rim. For a car marketed as one of Toyota's safest SUVs, it was a frightening sight. The test wasn't a fluke or a rookie mistake. Professional drivers repeated it multiple times, with identical results. Each attempt ended the same way: a loss of control, aggressive oversteer, and instability that left the testers shaking their heads. The issue wasn't raw grip, it was software. Toyota's electronic stability control system simply reacted too slowly. By the time it realized the car was out of shape, it was already too late. And that's what made this failure so concerning. This wasn't a 20-year-old pickup or a basic economy car. It was a plug-in hybrid SUV packed with sensors, computers, and driver aids. Yet, in a single emergency maneuver, it forgot the basics: staying upright and under control. To Toyota's credit, they didn't ignore the headlines. After widespread coverage, the company rolled out a software recalibration, fine-tuning how the ESC system braked individual wheels and managed torque distribution. When Teknikens World tested the updated version, the difference was night and day. The same RAV4 Prime that once nearly lost control now sailed through the cones smoothly and safely. That's the paradox of modern tech. When it works, it's invisible. When it fails spectacularly. And the RAV4 Prime proved that no amount of green tech or horsepower can replace one split second of smart, decisive engineering. Off-road meets reality. Suzuki Jimny, 2019. The Suzuki Jimny is one of those rare cars that people instantly love. It's small, boxy, charming, a mountain goat on wheels. Built with a ladder frame, solid axles, and four-wheel drive, the Jimny isn't meant to win races. It's meant to conquer the wilderness. But when it faced the moose test, the little off-roader met a challenge it simply wasn't designed for: tarmac. At around 47 miles per hour, the Jimny charged into the cones with its usual confidence. Within seconds, that confidence turned into chaos. The body leaned so far that the inside tires barely touched the ground. Cones flew as the SUV wobbled down the lane like a tightrope walker losing balance. The steering lagged, the tires squealed, and the driver fought just to keep it pointed forward. By the time the Jimny came to a stop, the verdict was clear. Cute or not, this thing was dangerously unstable at speed. So, what went wrong? The answer lies in its old-school design. The Jimny's high ground clearance, narrow track, and off-road suspension give it brilliant articulation on rocks and mud, but also make it incredibly top-heavy in sudden lane changes. The steering ratio is slow, meaning the driver has to turn the wheel more to get the same reaction. And those chunky all-terrain tires that grip perfectly off-road? On asphalt, they slide early and unpredictably. Testers ran the course again and again, lowering the speed each time. Finally, at about 42 miles per hour, the Jimny managed a clean run, a full 5 miles per hour slower than most modern SUVs. In moose test terms, that's a massive gap. For context, even large electric SUVs like the Tesla Model Y cleared the test comfortably above that. Still, to be fair, Suzuki never pretended the Jimny was a corner carver. It's a purpose-built off-roader, not a city crossover. The real issue wasn't that it failed. It's that buyers often treat it like a cute urban SUV when it's really a rugged tool. In the mountains, the Jimny is unstoppable. But on the highway, when a child, deer, or moose suddenly appears, physics takes control, and no amount of charm can change that. Electric and unsteady, Volvo C40 and Mustang Mach-E, 2021 to 2022. Electric cars are supposed to handle better than the old gas burners. Their batteries sit low, their weight distribution is near perfect, and instant torque makes them feel planted. At least, that's what the brochures say. But when the Volvo C40 Recharge and the Ford Mustang Mach-E hit the moose test, they proved that even high-tech machines can stumble on the basics. Let's start with the Volvo C40. It's sleek, quiet, and built on safety. But at 48 miles per hour, that composure vanished. The C40 dove into the first lane and simply refused to turn. The front tires pushed wide in heavy understeer, sliding past cones like it politely declined the driver's command. No spin, no oversteer, just a stubborn push straight ahead. Testers noted that the steering felt numb, and the tires, Pirelli P0 Elects, couldn't bite hard enough on the smooth asphalt. Even at reduced speeds, the EV struggled to stay within the lines. Its best clean run came at about 43 miles per hour, far below what rivals managed. All that battery weight pressing on the front axle meant stability came at the cost of agility. Then came the Ford Mustang Mach-E, a car that wears a legendary badge and promises sports car reflexes in SUV form. But during Technikon's Verd's test, the Mach-E lost its cool. At just 42 miles per hour, the front end plowed forward, and when the driver corrected, the rear snapped loose. The electronic stability control hesitated for a blink, and that was all it took. Cones scattered. Meanwhile, its rivals, the Tesla Model Y, Hyundai Ioniq 5, and Škoda Enyaq EV, breezed through the same course at higher speeds without drama. Ford's flagship EV suddenly looked out of sync, its calibration a step behind its competition. The irony: both cars are packed with sensors, computers, and driver assist systems designed to prevent exactly this. Yet the moose test exposed their weak point: the software's reaction time. Because in an emergency swerve, milliseconds matter more than marketing. Electric cars may be the future, but the C40 and Mach-E remind us of one humbling truth. Even with thousands of lines of code and the best batteries on Earth, you still can't program your way out of physics. The big ones fall hard: Jeep Grand Cherokee and Kia Sportage. Big SUVs are built to feel unstoppable. You sit higher, you feel safer, and there's something reassuring about driving a few tons of steel through traffic. But in the Moose test, that illusion can shatter fast, and few examples proved it better than the Jeep Grand Cherokee and the Kia Sportage plug-in hybrid. Let's rewind to 2012. The Jeep Grand Cherokee was marketed as a family fortress, a comfortable SUV that could go off-road when needed. But when it faced the Swedish Moose test, things went sideways, literally. At just 38 miles per hour, the big Jeep swung into the cones and lifted its inside wheels completely off the ground. Push it a little faster, 39.5 miles per hour, and it rolled. That's right, a full-size family SUV almost flipped at suburban speeds. The test team had to stop mid-session out of safety concerns. They said the Grand Cherokee's reaction was among the scariest they had ever seen. Its suspension tuning, designed for comfort and off-road flex, simply couldn't handle the violent weight shift of a sudden lane change. Even the electronic stability control seemed overwhelmed. For a brand that prides itself on rugged dependability, this was a wake-up call. Size doesn't equal stability. Fast forward to 2023, and the lesson still stands. The new Kia Sportage plug-in hybrid entered the same test. Heavier, smarter, and loaded with electronics. Yet, when the driver threw it into the course at 48 miles per hour, the SUV lost control almost instantly. It plowed into cones, its rear bouncing side to side, like a trailer fishtailing behind a truck. Even after dropping the speed to 44 miles per hour, the Sportage still struggled to stay inside the lanes. Its twin, the Hyundai Tucson, managed a clean run at higher speed, proof that even closely related cars can behave very differently. Both SUVs shared the same problem: too much weight, too little grip, and slow software. When all the mass shifts suddenly, even the best stability systems can't defy physics. The Grand Cherokee and the Sportage prove one thing: modern SUVs might feel unshakable, but the Moose test reveals the truth. In an emergency, the biggest vehicles can fall the hardest. When software saves the day, Toyota's fix and record setters. Not every Moose test story ends in failure. For some automakers, humiliation became motivation, a reason to evolve, recalibrate, and fight back. And perhaps no brand proved that better than Toyota. When the RAV4 plug-in hybrid failed its first Moose test in 2020, it wasn't just an awkward headline, it was a PR disaster. Videos of the SUV plowing through cones went viral. Drivers saw an everyday family car lose control at barely highway speeds. For Toyota, the global symbol of reliability, that hurt. But instead of denying the results, Toyota's engineers went to work. They realized the problem wasn't mechanical, it was digital. The electronic stability control system reacted too late to sudden steering inputs. So they rewrote the software. They tuned it to brake individual wheels faster, limit torque more precisely, and apply corrective steering earlier. No suspension redesign, no chassis overhaul, just smarter code. When Technicans viral tested the updated RAV4, the results were night and day. The same car that had stumbled and skidded now glided through the course cleanly at higher speeds, keeping all four wheels planted. That moment proved something crucial. In modern cars, software can make or break safety. It can turn a failing vehicle into a passing one, with nothing but a few lines of code. But while Toyota was fixing its issues, others were setting records. The Porsche 718 Cayman GT 4RS Man-Thay currently holds the crown, clearing the Moose test at a staggering 86 kilometers per hour. For context, most SUVs fail at 70 to 75. Before Porsche, the Citroën Xantia Activa held the title for decades, thanks to its advanced active suspension that kept it perfectly flat through corners. Both cars proved that technology, when used right, can push physics to its limits, safely. From Toyota's code tweaks to Porsche's engineering perfection, the Moose test has evolved from a media stunt into a measure of real-world mastery. Because no matter how beautiful a car looks or how fast it accelerates, none of it matters if it can't dodge danger when life demands it. Lessons for drivers: why the Moose test still matters. The Moose test isn't just a stunt for headlines. It's a brutal reminder that real-world danger doesn't wait for perfect conditions. A child chasing a ball, a car cutting into your lane, a deer frozen in the headlights. Those moments happen in an instant, and whether you walk away or not often depends on how your car reacts in the next half second. That's what makes the Moose test so powerful. It cuts through marketing, badges, and fancy spec sheets to expose one simple truth. How well does your car handle panic? What's fascinating is how unpredictable the results can be. A compact hatchback can pass with ease, while a six-figure SUV struggles. An off-roader built for the wild might feel unstoppable off pavement, but tip over in a simple swerve on asphalt. Even electric cars, the so-called future of safety, can fail when their software isn't tuned to respond instantly. It's not about horsepower or top speed. It's about balance, control, and the invisible dialogue between tires, suspension, and electronics. When those three speak the same language, even a heavy SUV can weave through cones like a dancer. When they don't, you get chaos, the kind that ends with screeching tires and flying cones. Automakers are getting better. Modern stability systems react faster, suspension setups are more adaptable, and tires have evolved to handle sudden loads. But as cars grow heavier, especially with massive EV batteries, new challenges emerge. The physics never change, only how we fight against them. So next time you're car shopping, don't just look at horsepower or touch screen size. Look at how it handles a sudden emergency. Watch the Moose test footage, because that one maneuver, that single violent swerve, reveals more about your car's soul than any marketing brochure ever could. Some cars fail and learn, others fail and ignore, but the Moose test never lies. It's the one exam where the teacher is physics itself, and it always grades honestly.